I blocked my husband so I could disappear for one perfect, secret week with another man. When I came back home sun-kissed and satisfied, I found police tape on my front door, and my husband was gone forever. When I married Calder, I thought stability was the same thing as happiness. We built a clean, organized life. Our home was always neat. Bills were paid before they were due. Weekends were predictable. Groceries on Saturday, meal prep on Sunday, dinner at the same 2 restaurants every month. Nothing was ever chaotic. Nothing was ever loud. At first, I liked that about him. He wasn't reckless. He didn't gamble or drink too much. He didn't flirt with other women. He came home every evening at 6:30, loosened his tie, and asked about my day in the same calm tone. But after years of that same rhythm, something inside me started to feel dull. We stopped talking about dreams. We stopped laughing over small things. Our conversations turned into schedules and responsibilities. If I tried to bring up how disconnected I felt, he would nod slowly and say, "We're fine. We're solid." That word, solid, began to feel heavy. At night, we lay on opposite sides of the bed. Not angry, not fighting, just quiet. The silence between us grew thicker every month. I started to wonder if this was all my life would ever be, safe, steady, and emotionally empty. I didn't feel hated. I didn't feel unloved in a cruel way. I just felt unseen, like I was part of a routine instead of a partner. And slowly, without saying it out loud, I began to believe I deserved something that made my heart race instead of just keeping my life organized. A few weeks after the training ended, Draven called me late at night. His voice was low and confident. He said he wanted more than stolen hours and closed curtains. He suggested we disappear for a week. Just us. No work. No interruptions. Somewhere quiet and beautiful. My chest tightened when he said it. I knew what it meant. It wasn't just another meeting. It was a choice. A real one. I stared at my phone for a long time after we hung up. I thought about my house, my routine, the steady life waiting for me every evening. Then I thought about desert air, open skies, and being with someone who made me feel alive. The risk scared me, but the excitement felt stronger. I packed lightly. I didn't tell many details. I wrote a short note and left it on the kitchen counter. I kept it simple. I said I needed time to think and clear my head. I didn't explain anything else. Right before getting into the car, I opened my phone and blocked Calder's number. I told myself it was necessary. I didn't want questions. I didn't want guilt. I didn't want anything breaking the mood before it even started. When I drove away, I felt nervous, but also strangely powerful. For once, I wasn't adjusting to someone else's expectations. I wasn't choosing stability or routine. I was choosing what I wanted in that moment. And I didn't look back. The air felt different there, dry, warm, open. The red mountains stretched out under a wide sky, and everything seemed larger than my normal life. Draven booked a quiet place with a view of the desert. In the evenings, we sat outside with glasses of wine, watching the sun sink behind the rocks. He would lean close and talk about how simple life could be if people were brave enough to choose what they really wanted. With him, I felt bold. During the day, we explored trails and small cafes. At night, we stayed up late, talking about starting over somewhere new. He spoke as if the future was already decided. He said I deserved more than routine and silence. He said we could build something intense and real. I started picturing it. Papers signed, a fresh apartment, a life filled with passion instead of order. The idea felt reckless but exciting. I convinced myself that what I was doing wasn't destroying anything. It was just clearing the way for something better. Still, every night when the room went quiet and Draven fell asleep, I felt a tightness in my chest. It wasn't loud enough to stop me, just strong enough to notice. I would stare at the ceiling, thinking about the home I had left behind. For a moment, doubt would rise. But by morning, with sunlight flooding the room and Draven's arms around me, I pushed that feeling away. I told myself anxiety was normal when you're about to change your life. And I chose to believe excitement was stronger than fear. The drive back felt longer than the one I took leaving. The excitement that carried me away was gone. In its place was a strange heaviness I couldn't explain. I told myself it was just the end of a trip, the return to reality. As I turned onto my street, I slowed down. Something felt off immediately. The neighborhood looked still, almost frozen. No kids riding bikes. No neighbors watering lawns. Even the air felt tense. Then I saw the patrol car parked 2 houses down. My heart began to beat faster. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe a break-in somewhere nearby. Maybe someone else's problem. I kept driving until my house came into full view. That's when I saw the yellow tape stretched across my front porch. I stopped the car in the middle of the road. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The tape moved slightly in the wind, bright and impossible to ignore. My front door was closed, but the sight of that barrier made everything feel unreal. I stepped out slowly, my legs weak. A neighbor across the street was standing by her mailbox, staring at me like she had seen a ghost. The silence around us felt heavy. I walked toward the house, each step harder than the last. My mind raced through possibilities, but none of them made sense. I had only been gone a week. The closer I got, the louder the sound of my own heartbeat became. Whatever had happened, it wasn't small. And deep down, before anyone said a word, I knew my life was about to split into 2 parts, before this moment, and after it. Mrs. Dorsey from across the street walked toward me slowly, her face pale. She kept looking at me like she wasn't sure what to say. When she finally spoke, her voice shook. "Where have you been?" she asked quietly. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She told me Calder had been reported missing 4 days ago. When he didn't show up for work and no one could reach him, his office contacted the police. Later that evening, they found his car parked near a hiking trail outside town. The keys were still inside. His wallet was in the console. There were no signs of a struggle. No broken windows. No blood. Just an empty vehicle sitting alone. Search teams had been out for days. My ears rang as she spoke. I felt like I was standing outside my own body, watching someone else receive the news. Missing. The word echoed in my head. An officer approached and asked where I had been. I said I needed space. I said I hadn't checked my phone much. My hands were shaking when I finally opened it. I saw dozens of missed calls. All from Calder. Some were late at night. Some early in the morning. There were also voicemails I hadn't listened to. Then I remembered. I had blocked his number before I left. My stomach twisted. He hadn't been able to reach me at all. While I was gone, while I was choosing freedom, he had been trying again and again. And now he was nowhere to be found. The police came to question me a few days after the missing report. They asked about our marriage, about his habits, about our routines. They wanted to know if there had been fights, arguments, anything that might explain why he disappeared. I answered carefully, hiding the affair. I told them we were fine, that we didn't fight, that he was responsible and predictable. I kept my voice steady, kept my face calm. Inside, I was crumbling. Every time I looked at Calder's empty side of the bed, every time I passed his favorite chair in the living room, guilt gnawed at me. I replayed every choice that led me here. The smiles I gave Draven, the lies I told myself about needing freedom, the number I blocked without thinking. It all weighed on me, pressing harder each moment. Then I found it. My phone had a voicemail I hadn't listened to. The timestamp was from the night I blocked him. Calder's voice, shaky but determined, said, "Eloan, we need to talk. It's urgent." I froze. My chest tightened. He had reached out to me, tried to connect, to fix something, or maybe to confront me. But I had silenced him before he even got the chance. The words echoed in my mind over and over. Urgent. Needed to talk. Those weren't casual words. They were desperate. A last attempt to reach me before the world shifted. I had never heard them in time. Sitting there, staring at the screen, I realized that the guilt wasn't just about hiding the truth from the police. It was about knowing I had cut him off when he needed me the most, leaving him alone with his pain, and that my selfish choices had real consequences that I could no longer ignore. The news hit me like a punch to the chest. Calder's body had been found weeks after he went missing. The canyon where he was discovered was steep and isolated, a place few people visited. The police ruled it a suicide. They said the pressure of work, money troubles, and the stress in our marriage likely pushed him to the edge. Friends and neighbors whispered condolences, and everyone seemed shocked but calm, treating it like a tragic accident. But I knew the truth, the part no one else could see. Calder hadn't been blindly desperate. He had been hurt deeply, painfully. I went into his study one evening, trying to find some trace of him, something to feel close again. That's when I saw it. A small stack of printed hotel receipts tucked in his desk drawer. My heart stopped. They weren't old. They were from the same dates I had been away on my secret trip. He had found out about Draven. He had traced my steps, my lies, my escape. I remembered now the tension in his last few calls, the pauses in his voice. He hadn't reacted with anger, not outwardly. He had acted silently, carrying the weight alone. That realization hit me harder than anything else. I couldn't tell anyone. To the world, it was just a sad suicide. But I knew better. I had broken something inside him, something he could never fix. And now he was gone. Alone. Betrayed. And I was left facing the consequences of a choice I thought was mine alone. The quiet truth of what he knew, and what I had done, pressed on me like a shadow I couldn't escape. A week after Calder's body was found, I received a letter from his lawyer. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting something to ease the emptiness I felt. Instead, I was met with a shock I wasn't prepared for. Calder had changed his will just 3 days before I left on my trip. Almost everything he owned, our house, his investments, the savings we had worked for, was left to a veterans mental health foundation he had supported quietly for years. He had excluded me from almost everything. I received only a small personal amount, enough for a few months of living if I was careful. Along with a single letter addressed to me in his handwriting. I unfolded the paper slowly, my eyes scanning the neat script. There were no angry words. No accusations. Just his voice, calm even in writing. He explained that he wanted to make sure his money went to something meaningful, to people who could truly use it. He wrote that he knew about the affair, that he understood my choices, and that he hoped one day I would understand the consequences of mine. I felt the weight of every decision I had made in the last weeks crashing down on me. I had thought leaving for a week would give me freedom, a taste of excitement. But Calder had already anticipated the cost. He had planned for the future, not for me. For the first time, I realized that he hadn't just been hurt emotionally. He had taken control in the only way he could, leaving me with the reality of my actions. The house, the money, the life I thought I had control over, they were gone. And the letter, simple and quiet, made the loss even sharper. I had been outplayed, and there was no one to blame but myself. A week after Calder's body was found, I received a letter from his lawyer. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting something to ease the emptiness I felt. Instead, I was met with a shock I wasn't prepared for. Calder had changed his will just 3 days before I left on my trip. Almost everything he owned, our house, his investments, the savings we had worked for, was left to a veterans mental health foundation he had supported quietly for years. He had excluded me from almost everything. I received only a small personal amount, enough for a few months of living if I was careful. Along with a single letter addressed to me in his handwriting. I unfolded the paper slowly, my eyes scanning the neat script. There were no angry words. No accusations. Just his voice, calm even in writing. He explained that he wanted to make sure his money went to something meaningful, to people who could truly use it. He wrote that he knew about the affair, that he understood my choices, and that he hoped one day I would understand the consequences of mine. I felt the weight of every decision I had made in the last weeks crashing down on me. I had thought leaving for a week would give me freedom, a taste of excitement. But Calder had already anticipated the cost. He had planned for the future, not for me. For the first time, I realized that he hadn't just been hurt emotionally. He had taken control in the only way he could, leaving me with the reality of my actions. The house, the money, the life I thought I had control over, they were gone. And the letter, simple and quiet, made the loss even sharper. I had been outplayed, and there was no one to blame but myself. I read Calder's letter over and over, unable to put it down. The handwriting was steady, careful, almost peaceful, but every word cut deep. He wrote that he knew about Draven, that he had seen the hotel receipts and understood the choices I had made. There was no anger in the lines, only quiet truth. He said betrayal doesn't scream. It doesn't hit like a thunderclap. It suffocates slowly, quietly, leaving a person gasping without anyone noticing. Reading that, I realized the depth of his pain, the nights he must have spent carrying it alone. The man I thought silent had been living with my deception in every heartbeat, every quiet moment. He admitted he had felt like a placeholder in my life, someone who existed only to maintain comfort and routine. That phrase stung more than anything else. He didn't accuse me. He didn't curse me. He didn't beg me to change. He simply told the truth of how he felt. And the weight of it hit harder than any confrontation could have. The letter ended with a single sentence that echoed in my mind long after I set it down. "You chose freedom. I hope it was worth the cost." I sat in the quiet of the house, feeling the emptiness around me. The words weren't loud, but they were enough. Enough to make me realize that the life I had thought I wanted, the excitement and passion I had chased, had come at a cost far greater than I had imagined. Calder had given me clarity in the calmest way possible, showing me the truth of my choices without raising his voice, without dramatics, but with an honesty that would haunt me forever. After reading Calder's letter and realizing what I had lost, I turned to Draven. I thought he would be my refuge, someone who understood me, someone who had promised excitement and connection. I needed him to validate my choices, to help me feel like I hadn't destroyed everything for nothing. But he wasn't there. At first he made excuses. Work was busy, he was tired. But the calls became shorter, the messages slower. Within days he stopped reaching out altogether. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He said quietly that he had assumed I would come back with more than just stories from a desert trip. He had expected wealth, a life of comfort to match the thrill I had sought. His words hit me harder than Calder's anger ever could. All this time, I had believed Draven's attention was about me, about who I was, about escaping a dull life. But it wasn't. His interest had been conditional, tied to what I could give him, not who I was. The passion I had chased so recklessly turned out to be an illusion. I realized in that moment that betrayal is never simple. I hadn't just hurt Calder. I had hurt myself. I had been used, deceived, and abandoned, and the person I thought would save me only proved how empty the escape had been. Sitting alone in the house, the weight of the lesson settled on me. The thrill I had chased, the rebellion against routine, had left me with nothing but loss and regret. I had wanted freedom and excitement, but instead, I had opened my life to betrayal from every angle. And in the silence, I finally understood the full cost of my choices. The house felt emptier than ever. Most of Calder's things were gone, donated or moved as part of his will. I wandered from room to room, seeing traces of him everywhere, his coffee mug on the counter, a folded shirt in the closet, but the weight of absence pressed down harder than anything else. I found my phone and listened to his last voicemail again. His voice wasn't loud or angry. It was soft, broken, full of disappointment and sadness. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply spoke like someone who had loved too much and been left with nothing but silence in return. I thought about the choices I had made. The secret trip, the lies, the thrill of being with Draven. I had thought I was gaining freedom, passion, a life of my own design. But every step I had taken had led me further from the one person who had truly cared for me. The one person who had stayed steady while I chased illusions. Draven had abandoned me when the inheritance vanished. My home, my security, the man I had once called my husband, gone. All because I had wanted something more exciting, something that felt alive in the moment. For the first time, I felt the full weight of karma. It hadn't rushed. It had been patient. It had let me chase my desires, then quietly collected everything I thought I had earned. Loyalty, love, comfort, stability. They were gone, replaced with silence and regret. I sat in the empty house, realizing that betrayal always comes at a cost. The life I had thought I was creating for myself had been taken away piece by piece. And in the quiet, I understood that the thrill of the moment can never outweigh the consequences that follow.
Some stories don't end, they follow you. If this one stayed in your mind, you know what to do.